Never used it.
Council agenda, Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Township Council agenda meeting of August 7th, 2018.
Posting of notice. An adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the municipal building and on the municipal website on July 16th, 2018, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record on July 19, 2018, and was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers on July 16, 2018. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Public Access Channel 21 at 7 o'clock p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Please rise for the flag salute. Mrs. Grignani, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Here.
Ms. McCarthy,
Here.
Ms. Grignani,
Present.
Mr. Carriffy.
Here.
Also in attendance are Business Administrator Ellen Sandman, Township Attorney Jim Lott, and the Township Clerk Colette Madden. Mr. President, we have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, August 21st, 2018, 7:30 p.m. regular meeting. September 11th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. agenda meeting. Approval of minutes. Presentations, reports, Township Council.
Just one quick report, if I may. The Parsippany Child Daycare Center had their 50th anniversary celebration, and I made the presentation from the Township Council, congratulating them on their 50 years.
Thank you. I just have a question for the business administrator. Ellen,
Yes.
now that the budget's been approved and passed, when are the employees, their contracts, now, when are they going to get I'd like to see them get their raises and their retro checks as soon as possible. Is that?
Yeah,
Something
we're actually working on it. People are now sending in, it has to go through a process, which is a PA form.
Right.
I signed about 10 of them today.
Okay.
And again, it has that effective date as of July 1, just for the
Okay.
record. And we're moving as quickly as possible as we can do that. So,
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we are in the process of
Thank you.
doing that.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may,
Sure.
I received several calls from residents. We note in our posting of notice and the note that we have our video available to our residents. The last video that has been on our Parsippany Township official website, June 13th, 2018. And
I can comment on that, actually.
Please.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Right now, there's two things going on. One, they're in transition. They're in the process of getting a new web host. That's the first thing, so that's the holdup. But the other thing is I think there's been some technical difficulties over with, what's the name of this company?
Alpha
Dog.
Alpha Dog.
And yeah, we're in the process of correcting it, and we hope that all the videos will be up within the next 24 to 48 hours max. So if anything I can do about it, it'll probably be up by tomorrow.
thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Township Attorney, Mr. Lott.
I have no report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Business Administrator, Mrs. Sandman.
I have one item for discussion, but I also have one point of order. I just wanted to announce that December 1st will be my retirement date. I will be retiring as of December 1st. I've enjoyed my wonderful stay here in Parsippany. As I just said to Jasmine, I said, you know that saying when they say, you know, you never find something you love and you never, work a day in your life. I did, however, paraphrase it and said, maybe a couple of days I worked in Parsippany. Maybe a good couple of days. But in the end, it's all about people and working together and being joyous in what you do. Sorry. And again, I'm going to... Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I will make some I was going to say parting shots, but I digress. No, parting, you know, as we get closer. But because of the change and bringing in someone new, you know, a little bit for the transition, I thought it was appropriate for me to announce that this evening. As I said, I will be still here, as Nixon said, to kick around a little bit. But I look forward to continue to doing a job. As I said to the mayor, I said, you know, for 44 years, every morning when I wake up with a sense of urgency and a sense of dedication to what we do. It's not always easy, but that's the right thing to do. So again, I leave you with that. One of the things we've been working on as far as bringing in funds for the town and doing trying to think outside the box. We've talked about gov deals. And what gov deals is the fact that we can sell on the, you know, it goes out throughout the whole United States, and people, you know, buy our old police equipment and vehicles and computers. And at this point in the auction, we're about $48,000 plus in $48,000 that comes directly to the town. And the other part of it cleans up, it removes the vehicles, the equipment away from, and gives us space. And the equipment is removed by the person who bids on the property. So we're very lucky in that. And my intern has been working dedicated. I had thought I would have a report that I could present to the council, but what I will do is tomorrow you will get a copy of where we are with that. Oh, you have it?
Thank you.
It was in my folder.
Oh.
Yeah, it's in the back.
Okay. Well, I have a very good intern who failed to mention in that part to me that he already did it. Let me see if I was honestly remembering $48,000. $48,000, and you know, I really have a good memory from numbers. Let's be exact here. 48,000.
Not just for numbers.
Right. Yeah. Oh, thank you. $48,275.99. So you know that this is a real number. So anyway, I'm glad that he did that. I just said to the clerk, I said, gee, that's not SAF, but there it is. So
Well,
thank
Ellen,
you.
I would like to thank you for your years of service and dedication. I personally will miss you.
Yes,
Okay.
we all will.
No, it's not time. I just think because of the change, you know, we'll do that.
You just wanted to hear it twice, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely, Council President. You found me out.
I just want to thank you too, but I'll thank you again.
Yeah, thank me again. Yes.
And everybody thank you.
Yeah. I know. You know what? The wonderful thing about working with all different kinds of people is, in this business, you never get a big head. They always kind of let you know. And you know what? It has served me well. So thank you.
All right. Township Clerk?
Yeah, two things. One, I'll quickly thank you, and then we'll save the rest for later, Ellen. And then just two things very quickly. I believe it's August 21st, the next meeting day. We are setting up for a shredded. This is not a shredded for the town. This is a shredded for you know, our township here. As you guys know, I'm in charge of the archives, and since I've come on, one of the things that we've had to do was get the archives in order. Since then, I think we've destroyed about 1,500 boxes. We're probably due to destroy this August 21st about another 200 to 300 boxes. And also, as you guys may or may not be aware, we're also in the process of getting the entire township on scanning. This way we can try to be paper light, and we won't have to deal with this archive situation going forward in the future. And thus far, since I've been here, we have been able to get the mayor's office, administration, the clerk's office, fire prevention, housing, and zoning all on scanning. So this is going to be more beneficial to the township, as it's going to allow them to be able to easier access records, and it's going to be easier for you guys out there, residents, in the event that you guys want to request any records. It'll be much easier for us to, you know, get them to you in a much quicker time frame. But that's all I have. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Township officers, committees?
None at this time.
Engineering report. Knoll Road Improvement Project. Construction of the Knoll Road Improvement Project is continuing, and we anticipate the work will be substantially complete by the end of August. No council action required. Lake Parsippany Road Improvements Phase 6 project. Construction of the 6th phase of the Lake Parsippany Road Improvement Project is started. Work will continue through the end of September. No council action required. 2018 road resurfacing project. The milling and resurfacing of various streets throughout the township has commenced. In addition to resurfacing the roadways, the contractor will also be repairing of damaged curb and replacing handicap ramps where needed within the project limits. All work is expected to be substantially complete by October. No council action required. Old Bloomfield Ave Phase 1 project, the first phase of the Old Bloomfield Ave project is in construction. The project is about 50% complete, and we anticipate all work will be done by early September. No council action required. Moraine Area Streets Phase 2 project. The second phase of this project has started, and construction activity will increase in the next few weeks. All work is expected to be substantially complete by the end of October. No council action required. Mount Tabor Area Streets Phase 3 improvement project. The contractor will be starting this project in the next few weeks. Work will continue through the end of the construction season. No council action required. Endorsement of the NJDOT Transportation Enhancement Grants. We are in the process of preparing and submitting grant applications through the NJDOT Transportation Alternatives Set-Asides Grant Program. The applications are for the streetscape and traffic calming improvements on North Beverwick Road from Claudine Terrace to Seneca Ave and roadway improvements by Knollwood School. Resolutions endorsing the applications will need to be adopted by the Township Council. Endorsement of the NJDOT Safe Routes to Schools Grant. We are in the process of preparing and submitting grant applications through the NJDOT Safe Routes to Schools Grant Program. The applications are for improvements around schools, for safer access, particularly for drop-off and pickup in front of Knollwood School, and streetscape improvements along North Beverwick Road. Resolutions endorsing the applications will need to be adopted by the Township Council.
Council President, we will coordinate that with the clerk and with engineering and with our grants folks. We have meetings to make sure that those resolutions are made in a timely fashion.
Great, thank you. Okay, presentation. At this time, we're going to have a presentation by Craftsman Farms.
Upper right. Upper right.
The other upper right.
That's the right one.
No, I'm kidding. You know what you're talking about. I was thinking of color.
Maybe it could be a
I
little
think we may need a few more.
Yeah.
A few more in the back.
And while Vonda's doing that, I want to say something on behalf of Vonda. She too wakes up with a sense of urgency about Craftsman's Farms and is dedicated to that. And that's the truth. So it's good. I wanted to share that. Yes, I think so, because you're very soft-spoken.
Well, in addition to Vonda and Barbara, we have a bunch of trustees in the next row, and welcome.
Yes.
You know who you are. No. Oh,
Hello.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, I have to see the screen, so I'm going to stand over here. And then you can just look at the screen and not look at me, so we'll be good. Everybody in the back can hear. I can't tell how loud I am, so if I'm overpowering you, let me know. Okay, I'm Vonda Givens. I'm the Executive Director of the Stickley Museum at Craftsman Farms, and I want to thank you all for having me today. This is our annual presentation to the Town Council. I'll explain why we do this in a minute, but I want to acknowledge that our Board President, Barbara Weiskettel, is here, and we have current and former board members as well, and volunteers, and we have a little group of people supporting us here tonight. So I want to thank you all for coming out and showing your support. So, in I realize this is my 5th time to make this presentation, so I'm going to try to stay focused and not wander too much so that I can keep this rolling along and keep everybody focused on it. So what I usually do is talk a little bit about the past and how we got to today, and then I have exciting news about the future, tomorrow, what we're going to be doing in the future. And I can say this is one of the few times that I am before the council not asking for money, so I feel like we should make a note of that. So this is a rare circumstance. It doesn't mean I might not come back, but in my 5 times, this is my 5th time up here. That's an unusual circumstance. So The yesterday part I'm going to breeze through today because if you haven't been to Crossman Farms, or you haven't toured the Stickley Museum, I want to invite you to do that. This is a photograph from 1911, and you can see Gustav Stickley pictured here. This was his property. It was 650 acres in 1911, a family home, a working farm, a school, a community. And Stickley was quite an innovator and an entrepreneur, and he had a business that was built on home furnishings and architecture. It was a pretty extraordinary story, so I do want to encourage you to come and visit. You'll learn all about it. Stickley lived on the property from 1911 till 1917. And he left in 1917. He sold the property to a family named Farney. And the Farneys lived there until, or at least owned the property until the 80s. And in that time period, Stickley had been famous in his lifetime, and then he sort of disappeared from popular memory and then reemerged with force in the 60s and 70s. People were really interested in Stickley and Crossman Farms, and that helped propel interest in saving Crossman Farms. So in 1988, I feel like maybe I'm standing at a place where it's squealing, right? Or is it just to me? Just to me. Okay, great. Then it's only disturbing to me. So Crossman Farms was saved from development in 1989, and it came about after a resurgence of interest in Stickley. There were people who knew what Crossman Farms was and were interested in saving the site. An open space fund was set up to be able to pay fair market value to the Farney family, and then the township purchased the property in 1989. At that same time, the Crossman Farms Foundation, which is today known as the Stickley Museum at Crossman Farms, was set up, and our responsibility is to restore, preserve, and interpret the site. The next year it opened to the public, and it was designated a National Historic Landmark. And there was a lot of years in between, but I'll skip ahead to 2007. It was kind of a watershed year, and it had come after several really difficult years. But there were two things that happened that year that are important to our partnership with the township. One is a 25-year operating agreement was established. Up to that point, there were 5-year agreements, and one of the great things about a 25-year operating agreement is it allows you to go outside of the township. We can ask for help with capital projects from the township, but we can also go outside of the township because other people can tell that we have a stable relationship with the township. So they see that the ownership of the property is in stable condition, that the partnership with the township we have is going to continue for 25 years. We also got funding for our historic site master plan. That's basically your playbook for how you're going to move forward in the future, your vision for the property. And it's really hard to get preservation funding without a historic site master plan. So you can see that those two things propelled us to where we're headed today, where we are now in 2018. So if you haven't been to Crossman Farms or haven't been there lately, I thought I would show you this map of the property in the Stickley era. So down here you see there's Route 10. Okay, so you can orient yourself. This is, it's called on the map the Erie-Lackawanna line, which is today New Jersey Transit. Manor Lane today is right in here, but you can see it didn't exist yet. And this is the original driveway that still goes through the property. So the 650 acres and 12 buildings in Stickley's era is now 30 acres and 9 buildings. And it's pretty remarkable that there are 9. If you think about it, that's a lot of buildings that still remain. And really the Farney family lived there for more than 70 years, and they made mostly cosmetic changes. So it really still bears the mark of Stickley on the property. So let's take a close-up look at this. So just so I can kind of orient everybody. If you've been to Crossman Farms before, the parking lot is where the orchard was in Stickley's time. And then we focus in on the heart of the property is the log house, which is what people tour today. The annex, which is where our educational programs are held. The North Cottage, South Cottage, White Cottage, and the log house make up the 4 residences on the site. And then there's a garage building. That is where the administrative office is today. So we're going to come back to that. I'll talk about that more. So here are pictures of the buildings just so you can imagine what they look like if you haven't been there. And then the farm buildings. They are horse barn, a milk house, a dairy barn. That's the ruins. For those of you who've been in Parsippany a while, you probably recall that there was a barn there until the 1970s, and it burned at that time, and it remained. The ruins remain. There's also a calf barn that's now our caretaker's home, and here are pictures, except for the caretaker's home. I didn't do that because it's a private home. So what do? So I mentioned before that we have an operating agreement with the township, and our responsibility is to oversee preservation of the site. 9 buildings, 30 acres, following the standards set by the Secretary of the Interior, which is a tall order. It's hard to do that. We oversee operations, which means that we make sure the building is the Craftsman Farms is available for public use, and interpretation, which is really about educating people about the site itself, about Stickley, about its connection to Parsippany, anything and everything related to how we can educate people about Craftsman Farms. Here's our mission, which is online. You can read it there. These are our strategic plan goals, and you can see there that it's time to get back to planning again. So these go through 2018, and we are in the process of reviewing those and developing our next 5-year strategic plan. So today we are open year-round, Thursday to Sunday, and that means we do more than 800 tours per year. That's on top of programs like Girl Scout workshops, special tours, lectures, trips, all kinds of programs. I asked our education manager today how many we'd done so far this year, and she said 36. Maybe she missed 1 or 2. We're a little bit behind because, remember March? It was kind of a rough month. We were closed for 7 days. We had a lot of Girl Scout programs canceled. We couldn't reschedule them all, so we're a little bit behind so far. We serve an average of 10,000 people per year, and it might interest you to know that we have a core volunteer crew of about 50 or so, and if you include people who volunteer for us more broadly outside of this community, people who help us, who work on our board, it goes to about 75 people. So a lot of people are interested in how we're funded. So we are self-funded. Our budget is $500,000. That self-funding covers our 7-member staff. That's 3 full-time people and 4 part-time people, all of our educational programs and our operational activities. Because we're owned by the township, we get resources. We can ask for help from the township for resources like the Parks and Forestry Department is a great help with maintaining our property. If we have problems, and we often do, with our water lines freezing in the winter, we can go to the Buildings Department and ask for help with that. And so we have a really nice, very helpful partnership with the township. But everything else we do is we have to raise the money for it. So we have memberships. We apply for grants. We have a grant from the state of New Jersey. It's called a GOS grant. That's a general operating support. It goes towards salaries. And there's a lot of work that's required to maintain that, to meet the standards for it, and to maintain, and then to report on it. We also do fundraising. We have an annual gala every year that raises 1/4 of our income. It's a lot of pressure again, but that in our annual fund is about half of our, raises about half of our budget per year. We also have earned income. We have a museum shop, we have admissions, we have educational programs. So there's a lot of ways that we go about raising that $500,000. Some years it's easier than others. And it is something that really keeps us, that sense of urgency that I was talking about, I feel that most days. So back to this, what our job is that with regard to our partnership with the township. So to me, that looks a lot more like that. So I was saying that there's preservation, operations, and interpretation. This is what it really looks like on the ground. I think of these 2 things, operations and interpretation, are kind of the same thing. We open to the public, we mostly educate the public. So operations and interpretation are essentially the same operation for me. Preservation is something different but equally important. So I think of them as kind of 2 gears, and they need to always be in motion. If one stops, the other doesn't work right either. So preservation, for instance, is about trying to preserve buildings, decide how far you want to take their restoration, and figure out how to use them to serve the future, the present day and the future of the museum. So, for instance, if you can get more of the 9 buildings open for the museum to use in some function, in some way, then that serves the museum and allows the museum to have more abilities to build revenue. If you build more revenue, that makes the staff stronger, and a strong staff is really what you need to make sure you're doing preservation properly. You need to make sure that you're strategizing. With 9 buildings, figuring out what to do, when to do it, which to do first, is a really hard thing to do. It requires a lot of help from, not just me, I get help from a lot of people. So these are 2 gears that are equally important, and they take up most of my time. But if they're working properly in motion, then they're really serving something that's much bigger and more important, and really why we do what we do. So our ultimate goal is to be a community resource. And if all of these gears are in motion, the kinds of things that I envision happening are what means to be a community resource. And I want to take a closer look at that. So in my mind, it's a variety of things that we can do to serve the community, but you might think of other things as well. But I wanted to hit on a few of these. So local economic impact. I just wanted to show some data that we had collected from visitors. We asked them to fill out a 5-question survey. And one of the interesting things we've learned, this is from our year, just this past year, 2016 to 2017, we collected a nice sized sample of 325 surveys. And of those, we received 325 responses to the question of what are people doing in the area aside from visiting Craftsman Farms. So they were coming on a tour of Craftsman Farms, so what else, if anything, are you doing in the area? So 165 people said they're just coming to visit Craftsman Farms, but 171 people were doing other things in the area, mostly dining, but 37% were doing 2 or more activities in the area. So that indicates that we have a pretty good impact on our community, and that we could grow that as well. So it's mostly lunch that people are looking to have in the area, but there might be, as we expand our activities, there may be other opportunities too. Facilities. So those of you who may vote in the district, in District 4 and 39, know that you vote at Craftsman Farms. We also have rooms available for things like Girl Scout meetings. So this is something that we can grow as we grow as an organization. Quality of life is a little hard, it's kind of intangible, it's a little hard to measure, but it is something that is important to think about as a community, and the kind of life that you want people in the community to have and how we can contribute to that. We have hosted a Fall Family Day for the past 12 years. It's a big event for our organization. We usually have around 500 people on site that day. And the idea of the program is to bring multi-generations together. I call it screen-free time. The idea is to play silly games, paint pumpkins, do hay rides, spend time together, and just play. And it's one of the few opportunities that I've known of in the area where parents will say to me that they can just let their preschooler just run on the property and feel comfortable that their child is safe. That is an intangible thing that's hard to know what the value of that is, but we're really about trying to build family memories and memories of your community. And I often say at this presentation, I'm from a small town outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm really proud of that. And you know, you want to have kids grow up in a community that they're proud to be a part of. And so we think we can contribute to that. We have an active Facebook page, a lot of followers. A lot of it has ended up being about pretty pictures. And you know what? That's what works. So we had such a long winter that I started taking a picture every week of the magnolia tree on the property. And the last week we had a lot of responses to it. We boosted it on Facebook and it got shared a whole bunch of times. So that's another intangible. You know, I can see that a lot of people saw it, but you know, there's something valuable about just something to see that is inspiring or comforting to look at the end of the day. It's also a nice place to take a walk, even in a snowstorm. And the last couple on my list are a resource for sharing local heritage and history, and a source of pride and international exposure. I'm just going to take these two together. If you're not aware, during the months of July and August, if you come on Thursdays, you get $1 admission if you're a Parsippany resident, so you can come and learn more about Craftsman Farms. We also host our Fall Family Day, as I mentioned before. Its focus is on the harvest, and Craftsman Farms was a dairy, just like a lot of the farms in the area up through the 1950s. So it's a way that we can engage kids with the history of this area. We have free open house on Sunday, October 14th. It's a good time to see the property. You don't have to pay to get in. And I just wanted to show you a graph of visitors where they come from across the United States. The same surveys that we did, we collected information about where people were coming from. So 25 states and 5 countries, 394 zip codes indicate, this is a pretty good spread, indicated that there were 250 from New Jersey, and 86 of those were from Morris County. That's based on my anecdotal knowledge, that's a pretty good representation of the visitors we get. We have members of the museum from all over the country, and 20 member libraries. So Parsippany Library, you can go and you can check out the member card and come for free for a visit. We were featured on NJTV's Drive by History. We were chosen as a hidden gem of New Jersey historic sites by NJ Family. There was this great series called bestofnewjersey.com, and they did this series, bestofnewjersey.com did a series called Jersey Through History. and they featured it on Facebook, and they get this huge response to it. I want to know how they did that, but 248 shares of this posting about our site, so that's pretty neat. This is a national arts and crafts collector website, and our recent lighting project was featured last week. And I gave a tour last week, and somebody asked me about our TripAdvisor page, and I decided to use a screenshot this time. We have 90 reviews on TripAdvisor, so if you want to see what people think about touring Craftsman Farms, you can check it there. Really proud of our 4.5 out of 5 rating, and I noticed when I got this screenshot that we have a certificate of excellence. I don't think that's something you can try to get unless you just get it. So I don't even know where it came from, but I'm happy about that. Now, a little bit of news about tomorrow. And I think there's a lot we want to be celebrating about tomorrow. So I want to go ahead and mention that next year we're celebrating our 30th anniversary. And that's 30 years of partnership with the township. It's 30 years since the Stickley Museum at Craftsman Farms was established. And that's 30 years of demonstrating that the property's significance. I feel like I just want to note, because this is what I do every day, you may not be aware that up in Syracuse, Stickley's house there, he moved away from Syracuse to New Jersey, and then after he left Craftsman Farms, he went back to Syracuse. His home in Syracuse is finally getting preserved. It's getting a lot of attention. It's been in the news a lot. And I think that's great, and if they're listening to me now, I think it's great. But I just want to acknowledge that Stickley had one dream home. He had one property that he established to be his ideal home, and it was right here in Parsippany, New Jersey. There's a museum that's being built down in Florida, the Museum of the American Arts and Crafts Movement. It's very impressive. I got to take a hard hat tour. It's a really great place. It will teach people like we do about Gustav Stickley, but we are still the authentic home of Gustav Stickley. And we want to make sure we position ourselves so that that's clear. So if people are interested in the arts and crafts movement, they know they really have to come to Parsippany to see this home. So to that end, what we're always doing is trying to make improvements to the site, improve our operations, and also keep preserving the site. We have recently installed exterior lighting, and those of you who heard this presentation before know that this has been coming. We've been working on this for a few years. We finally finished. We're actually close to finishing. Tomorrow we'll finish for good, hopefully. This project was funded with, you can see a couple of grants over the last few years. We also, last year, removed asbestos, installed a new fire and security alarm. We repaired roof leaks, which has come in really handy during all of the rain and over this summer. Who would have thought we'd have so much rain? So we've done a lot of really good work that came from my presentation last year, asking for help with a lot of the issues we had in 2017. I just wanted to highlight the lighting project for a second. It was really interesting because we were going to trench across the property, and we used it as an opportunity to also do an archaeological study. So you can see the initial dig that helped us to get some basic information we needed about the site and the dig that would help us as we dug the trenches around the property. So I'm not going to go into details about what we learned about the dig, but it was fascinating. It continues to unfold. And we did find things from the Stickley era in the dig, so that's really all you can hope for. So we did the archaeological dig. This is the map of the lighting. It has been, my entire time at Craftsman Farms, very dark at night. It's difficult to have evening programs. We still do have evening programs, but honestly, in the winter, when it gets dark and there's black ice on the road, it's dangerous to do it. So it's really exciting to finally have this lighting. We were able to do about half of the lighting, so everything along this line. And this is a picture of the lighting. This is a picture of the property in the Stickley era, and there's a close-up here of what the lights looked like on the Stickley era on the property, and here are the reproduction lights. So they look pretty good. So we're really pleased with that, and that's a great way of explaining how preservation, we're preserving, lighting the property in the way that references Stickley, but we're also doing that so we can have more programs and raise more revenue. And finally, the big exciting news is that we are finally breaking ground on a new education center. And this is really exciting to be able to finally say this. I had thought last year that we were going to break ground, and now I can really give you a date for when we're going to do it. So for those of you who have been following along with this process, this is what we usually call the administration building. We have newly named it the New Education Center. You can see here is the back of the building and the front of the building, which is really the gateway to the property. So this is the current building that you see when you arrive on the property. This is where the first building that visitors see, but they will come and see this entrance here. And the back part of the building will become our new education space, the new voting space, and it's a space that we'll be able to share with members of the community who want to use it for meetings. This is the earliest known photo of that building, and it gives you an idea. It was a lot bigger than it is currently today. It burned in 1950. So here's some pictures of it after the fire. So what was interesting about it is the original stone foundation did not burn. It was not badly damaged, so that's really where the garage was. And the upper floors burned, and what they rebuilt in its place was a one floor with 2 apartments. So the building had been quite a bit bigger. So what we'd like to do is re-envision that building for the future. The ground level will have a lot of space, it will more than double our current education program space, which is a huge advantage to us. We've been turning away children and adults for programs for years. Our first level is the office space, which is not usually that interesting to most people, but it will make for much, much more efficient office space, which means that we can actually have room to grow. Right now, we're maxed out of the space. And we're going to rebuild the upper level, and what's important to that is there's a significant area that will be given to archive storage and to being able to store our papers. Khaled was just talking about archives and materials. So we have a lot of photographs, books, our own archives, and we need proper storage for it. Right now, everything is stored in the log house. It's heavy. It's a lot of weight for that building, but it's also really hard to maintain the proper humidity levels to really be sure that we're going to protect all these documents for the future. So this is a big leap forward for our collection storage too. So the new education center is, as I said, it's a big leap forward. It expands our ability to do programs. It's a fitting entrance to a national historic landmark. It increases our facilities. It improves our storage space. It expands our office space. There's just a lot of things that we'll be able to accomplish, and it is exciting to be able to announce it. So it's really what we're going to be able to do is really back to those gears. You know, it's getting all of them working so that we can be a strong community resource and we can be a place that the community appreciates and wants to be a part of, and there's an understanding of what preservation can really do for a community. So just a word about the funding. So you can see I listed all of the time. These are the resolutions related to this building. As I've said, I've come here several times asking for funding, and in 2016 we presented this idea to the council. We really started in 2013 looking at expanding our facilities and how we would do that. And we asked for seed money to begin doing feasibility studies and trying to figure out how we might expand. By 2016, it had taken us a while to really develop a vision that we thought was right. And we came and asked for help with the administration building, now the education center, and expected to break ground last year. And last year, as we were preparing to start construction, we got our final estimate and realized to really move forward, we needed to raise more money. So we could either shrink our vision back. We took a long time to develop it. We could either go back and build a building that we didn't really want, and we certainly not the building we said we were going to build, or we could take the next 6 or 7 months and try to come up with the money that we needed. So one thing we did was I came back to the council and to the administration and said, we asked for funding for a variety of projects in 2017. We did some of those, but we really think the rest of that funding should go toward this building. If we don't build it now, we're not going to build it. So we have got a really huge boost from the township of support for this project. And that has been a big help with being able to go elsewhere for funding. So we earlier this year went to the county. I wrote a grant. It's a long process, you know, because you've been through it yourself. So the county, because the township also got a grant from the county. We found out a couple of weeks ago that we had received a grant of $355,000 for the lower portion, the ground level portion of the building. So with that, we've also been doing our own fundraising. And this is a first for us. Normally we raise $500,000 a year. That's our big goal. So this year we've been also trying to at the same time raise money for this building. And what we said to our donors who have been watching us along all these 30 years is the time is now. The township has given us support. The township has helped us get this county grant. So we need help from you to be able to move forward with the project, because anybody who's done this knows that it's the least expensive day to build a building is today. It only gets more expensive as the days go by. So we don't want to let this building go out of our grasp. So you can see that we have been fundraising. We currently have a one-time estate gift and donations received in 2018 of $85,000. We're still taking pledges, and we're really kind of at the beginning, but we have enough money to start the project, and so we plan to do that soon. You can see here the full budget for the project. We know that construction, or we expect construction to be $2.25 million. With architecture and contingency fees, it's more like 2.5, 2.6. To do everything, you still have to furnish the building, landscape the building. We have to move the staff out, have temporary offices. There's a lot involved in it. So we're anticipating up to $2.8 million for it. So the construction will begin right after Thanksgiving, the Monday after Thanksgiving, and then we're going to have our official groundbreaking a couple of weeks later. So if the ground is frozen on December 12th, we will have already started, and we'll be able to move forward with the project. But we'll get everybody together to celebrate in December. Now, I don't want to go out on a sour note, but I feel like it would be irresponsible for me not to acknowledge that we're really gung-ho on this one building, but we have 9 buildings total. And I'm not asking for money tonight, but that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of anticipated needs, and there's not a lot that we might need to come back for. So I mentioned there's 30 acres. We have a small pond the dam that is a part of that pond is not in good shape, and it hasn't been for a long time. We need to figure out what to do about it. That we need to pave and line the parking lot. We need help with signage. We need to do building preservation. The biggest issue for us ahead of us is in 2020, we need to replace our HVAC system. It's more than 20 years old, and they're notoriously finicky anyway. So we have until 2020, and then we really have to replace the system, and it'll probably cost $100,000 to do it. So a lot coming, but also a lot to celebrate. And I want you just to envision the way we think about Craftsman Farms. And just the last little bit I want to say is, I mentioned all of these buildings that we have here, right? And the new building that we're building. And in our minds, we're not talking about way into the future. I'm talking 5 to 10 years. Here is what I think we can be. Imagine a spring morning with a walking tour of the property, and then a school bus arrives with kids in 3rd or 4th grade who are learning about their local heritage. Or maybe it's a group of woodworking students from vocational school who are learning about Stickley's Furnishings. And then we open to the public at noon. And then later on, there's a story time in the North Cottage. And all this time, there's been an artist who's working in the South Cottage, and visitors can stop by and watch the artist at work. Or there's a Girl Scout workshop that goes on as soon as school lets out in the new education center. And there's a scholar who's been studying our ceramics over in the White Cottage, and is staying for the week to be able to do research. In the evening, we have an evening tour, one of our popular evening tours, or maybe we host a wine tasting, or we rent out the space for somebody else to do it. The idea is that we are a busy, active, dynamic place from morning to night. That's everything. Thank you.
Council President, 3 comments, if I may.
Yes.
I had the pleasure of being on the town council in 1989 when the township acquired that property. In fact, we actually started around 1975 to see what we could do to acquire the property. That's number 1. Number 2, I've worked in many organizations over the last 54 years, and in almost all those organizations, 10% of the people did 90% of the work. That's not true with this group of people right here. The trustees, the volunteers, the docents, the committee members, everyone in this organization works 100% of the time. No slouches in this group at all. It's a pleasure to work with them. I'm a liaison and a trustee, and I enjoy being with all of them. And the third thing is, it's not only a historic site. Craftsman Farms is a landmark. Now, there's thousands of historic sites in New Jersey. There are very few landmarks. You know, the Statue of Liberty is a landmark. Well, Craftsman Farms is a landmark. It has that status too. So that's very, very impressive. Just thought I would mention those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
lights on, please?
That would help, wouldn't it?
All right. Moving on to bids taken. July 12th, 2018, Craftsman
You want to
Park
give them a few
improvements.
minutes to leave first? If anyone wants to leave?
Oh, sure. If anyone wants to leave now, after that presentation.
Unless you really want to stay and listen to all of us.
Good answer.
If they don't stay, you didn't tell them, if they don't stay, it may affect the funding.
That's right.
All right.
Not too late.
Okay, we can move on with it. Okay, bids taken July 12th, 2018, Grafton Park improvements. July 31st, 2018, lease of public property. To be taken, none. Quotations, proposals, qualifications. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Motion?
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mrs. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Okay, the floor is open to the public on any matter.
Okay, if you'd like to come up, please state your name and address, sign in. You'll be given 5 minutes.
Not getting up.
Okay, so no one come forward,
Wait,
entertain a motion.
this is
close
open to the
hearing.
public.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that most of you are here to
For a
talk
reason.
about the
You
RCW.
have to come up, sign in at the microphone.
Well, yeah.
have
If they're, well, if they're going to be talking about the RCW, that's coming up for hearing as well.
Correct.
So we'll have them speak on that separately. But Council Member DePiero is correct. You can speak on it now, but it's probably more appropriate to talk about it when that ordinance come up for the hearing. So this way, the township. It's coming up, yes, this evening. Absolutely, sir.
Okay, so no one come forward, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mrs. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Okay, the floor is closed.
Thank you. Ordinances, status of adopted ordinances. Ordinance 2018:08, adopted July 24th. Mayoral action, July 25th. Effective date, August 20th. Ordinance 2018:09, adopted July 24th. Mayoral action, July 25th. Effective date, August 20th. Introduction, ordinance 2018:15. Mr. DePiero?
Ordinance 2008:15, an ordinance of the Township of Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 4, Administration of Government of the Code of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills related to the appointment of special law enforcement officers. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on August 7th, 2018, and that said ordinance be further considered for a second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on August 21st, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Who seconded that?
Second.
Okay, so motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mrs. Grignani.
No.
Roll-
McCarthy.
No, Mr.
Sorry,
McCarthy.
I apologize, Mrs. McCarthy, and I was looking right at you too.
Just a correction
Yeah.
to be technical.
Yeah.
This says motion to approve the above resolution is written here, but it should be
It's an
motion to
ordinance.
approve the above ordinance.
You are absolutely correct. I'm going to blame one of my staff members on that one. No, I'm just kidding. It was my fault, so I'm sorry. I apologize for the typo. Okay, so a motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance 2018:16, an ordinance establishing white-collar salary ranges. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at the meeting of the Town Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on August 7, 2018, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on August 21st, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given the opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. DePiero.
Again,
Roll-
ordinance.
It's ordinance. Yeah.
Oh man, they're gonna really be in trouble in the office. No, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. So, motion made by Mrs. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to page 6. Mrs. Grignani?
Ordinance 2018:12, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430, zoning related to permitted accessory uses and structures in the RCW Recreation, Conservation, and Wildlife District. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on June 22nd, 2018. This ordinance was introduced at the June 19, 2018 regular
Bless
meeting.
you.
Bless you. Motion to accept that ordinance 2018:12 be heard in its second and final reading by title only.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Grignani, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2018:12 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Grignani, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes. The floor is open now to the public for anyone that would like to speak about this, the RCW, the zoning issue.
My
Could
Council
you come up,
President,
please state your name and address, sign in? You'll be given 5 minutes.
thank you, Mr. President. Just some preliminary remarks about the ordinance that is the subject of public hearing tonight. As the result of a litigation that was filed by wildlife preserves against the township, which challenged several township zoning actions from 2014, 2015, we were able to reach an amicable settlement where we agreed to propose an amendment to the RCW zone district for properties that are in common ownership of at least 200 contiguous acres. And the purpose of the amendment would be to establish an accessory use standard for those tracts that would permit a number of environmentally related educational uses, as well as some other ancillary uses with respect to the care and maintenance of the property. Pursuant to the land use law, we were required to give notice to all properties that are within the RCW zone district, as well as all properties within 200 feet of the RCW zone district. We noticed over 800 properties because the RCW zone district appears in several locations in the town. As I said, this is being done, primarily to address accessory use standards for those properties that are at least 200 contiguous acres under common ownership. So the ordinance was essentially over-noticed for properties that are probably not directly impacted by the ordinance, but we'll certainly entertain public comment with respect to the ordinance in general. We're fortunate tonight to have Mr. Frank Banish, who was our special planner, in connection with the matter in case there were any planning-related questions.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, okay. Hi. Robert Algieri. I'm on 39 Parkside Drive. It's the corner of Troy Meadow and Parkside. Have a ton of questions. First of all, I think that you guys sending this notice out at this time of the year with people on vacation. I got this on the 27th. I was away on vacation. My neighbor was getting my mail. I think a lot of residents are on vacation and not available to even show up here tonight. I think the timing stinks. Secondly, I mean, I don't know what this is about. Everything is so vague. There's no location, there's no footprint, there's no drawing, there's, you know, observation towers. What observation towers? You know, this is a totally uninformative notification. I mean, if I built something in my yard, I need to notify you guys and get your approval.
I would respectfully disagree with you. The ordinance
Sir,
complies with the requirements of.
Sir, do you have any other questions? Is that all your questions?
Well, I'd like to at least protect our real estate investments, okay? And see what you're proposing to put, where you're proposing to put it, and how it's going to impact us.
I just want you to ask all your questions so we don't take up your time answering.
Yeah.
Council President,
So,
I know this is the open portion, but if a brief presentation could be made by Wildlife Preserves or the planner, and then go back into the open session later, it might answer a lot of questions that are going to be asked over and over and over again.
I mean, there should be a master plan for the residents who have so much money invested. Can look at and or approve or disapprove or see what this thing is going to be all about.
so why don't we hear from our township planner for a minute about some of the planning considerations?
Here, can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
I can tell you now, we've been victims of quads, four-wheel drive pickup trucks speeding in and out of the streets. Call the police 2 o'clock in the morning, and for some reason they really don't like going behind there at Green Acres. The response has always been very slow, and it's been a nightmare. There's people speeding in and out of Green Acres, and to be quite honest with you, when I read this, I couldn't imagine where they were going to put it and why they would put it there and not put it down in Green Acres past the pump house, where it's really a nature site. Where they're proposed to put this is residential housing.
You don't have to, you can just talk.
My name's Frank Banish, and I'm the special planner that's been working with the town on resolving this issue with wildlife. I think you have to look at what's being done tonight in the context of what the RCW zone already does. Right now, the zone includes permitted uses that are pretty broad-ranging. The name of the zone, Recreation, Conservation, and Wildlife, opens the zone up in a way that has some active uses and some less active conservation-oriented uses. And specifically, farming and tree nurseries are among permitted uses, but there are also more active uses like horseback riding, nature trails, picnicking, variety of things that are permitted today. This ordinance makes no change to those permitted uses. Also, ecology and nature classes are a category of less active uses.
Right.
Today, the ordinance says that permitted accessory uses include customarily incidental uses that go along with those things I just mentioned. The settlement resolved the question about what accessory uses could be permitted with some very explicit permissions for very limited uses that are uniquely focused on the conservation and wildlife management aspect of the use. So from the perspective of residents, I would think it would be encouraging to know that if there's an environmental education center, it can't be larger than 4,000 square feet, which is smaller than a, well, when you say it doesn't help, the range of permitted uses.
Oh, wait, just please let him finish.
We'd like to see where it's going, a drawing of what you're proposing. We have no idea what you're even proposing. This is all quite vague. I mean,
Well, just for one thing, where is the entrance going to be for this?
I don't
What
believe-
street-
I
what
don't
street will
believe
the
any
entrance
of that
be?
has been resolved at this point.
So the ordinance establishes preferred access locations on Beverwick Road and Troy Meadow Road.
Exclusive,
I'm
exclusive
sorry.
access. That is to be determined. There isn't an application before the township
Well,
now
I
asking.
don't think really, quite honestly, I was
sorry,
a
sir.
facility
Sir.
manager for 41 years in a large pharmaceutical company. I don't think you should be making any proposals until you have a plan.
If you,
I
go ahead, finish.
I don't believe that the intent of this proceeding is for this to be a back and forth between me and a
No,
member
I
of the
don't
audience.
want it to be either, but
Yeah,
So
we're
I'd
gonna,
like-
well, so what
I'd
we'll
like
do
to try
is,
to
I
finish-
think I
let's,
have a little more
let him-
at
excuse me.
stake than you do.
yeah, but let him finish.
Let him finish, and then we'll take more questions.
Yes, absolutely.
The zoning amendment is essentially enabling certain accessory uses, limited uses that are related either to the maintenance or interpretation activities on the site, and they're low-intensity uses. The fact that those uses are the things that the township has articulated in a settlement tells me that the intention is not to create a swim club or some indoor riding arena for horseback riding or any of those more active uses. That the intent is that if further development occurs, it will be along lines that have made sure these buildings will be a certain distance from neighboring residential property lines, and that they will be very minimal in scale and effect on the property. But they are not right now intended to go any specific place. The zoning enables a future use. This is not a response to an
Well, I don't
application.
know.
This is not a response to an application for development.
Right, but once
Sir,
the
wait.
zoning is
Are-
changed, you have a free hand to do whatever you like. That's what you're saying.
Go ahead.
There is no free hand. When the zoning is changed, an application for a site plan to conduct any of these uses would come before the planning board and would have to conform to the zoning standards.